They're not guilty for going about their lives. It's not something you should be guilty for feeding the homeless or taking your kids out to the playground. That's not how Canada works. Luckily, we had this victory. Legal battles don't always end in success, but this time it did. We've been fighting campaigns across the country at fightthefines.ca, fighting unreasonable fines that have been imposed on reasonable Canadians who just want to go about their lives, whether it's playing at a playground, going to a church, drinking their Tim Hortons coffee and eating a donut in a parking lot. And in this case, in downtown Calgary, it was a Christian pastor who was feeding homeless people. It literally does not get more innocent than that. And the police approached him and fined him $1,200. Well, we talked to Artur Pawlowski and we said, we'll fight your fines. With the support of our viewers, of course, at fightthefines.com, viewers across the country were contributing to this campaign to fight against authoritarian police officers who are going way past what they're reasonably expected to do by the government. So we took this case to court. They delivered to the client, the Christian pastor, a stay, which means that the Crown says, yeah, we're not actually going to proceed with these to a judge. You can go home. The problem is the fact that Artur Pawlowski actually had to go to court in the first place. If he didn't have our support, and just like everyone else across the country who wouldn't necessarily take something like this to court, they would have just paid the fine. They would have just bit the bullet. They would have said, okay, I guess maybe I did something wrong and maybe I owe the government some money. And they would have been guilty. By submitting that fine, they would have been found guilty. They're not guilty for going about their lives. It's not something you should be guilty for feeding the homeless or taking your kids out to the playground. That's not how Canada works. Luckily, we had this victory.
Well, first of all, I thank you so much for reporting this. Like, Rebel, you're the best. I thank you, Sarah Miller, for covering the case, for taking the case. That's our lawyer that was provided by the Rebel News. Thank you so much. You all have been helpful. You spread the news. You let the people know what's going on. And you know, that's power.
And they put handcuffs on my
When the people know what's going on, that's a powerful thing because it puts the government at check. It's not just someone that no one knows about. You brought this whole case into the public eyes, and the public should know about what's going on in their own country. So thank you so much.
That was going to be my next question is, if we don't fight back, not just Rebel News, but Canadians in general, about heavy-handed police tickets, like in this situation, in the global pandemic, when they're abusing their power as they did with you, disobeying the Constitution, violating the Constitution, what would happen if Canadians were just complacent?
Well, we are going to repeat the same history. You're talking to an immigrant, of course. You can hear that. I came from communism, Poland. We were occupied by the Russians, and we had a constitution in our country, but no one followed it. We had our rights that no one respected. No courts, no police, no media. It was a total chaos if it comes to the law. So it was few people dictating the rest of the country what is allowed, what's not allowed, no law. And if you don't put those people in check, if you don't fight for your rights, if you don't exercise your rights, I think that's the most important thing, because we think that we have the rights until we try to exercise them, and then suddenly, oops, I got a ticket. Why? I thought I have certain rights. One of those rights is to give necessities of life to the poor, to the poorest of the poor, and I got $1,200 ticket for doing that, for helping the city, for helping the most vulnerable.
Whoa, 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 whoa. On your 8 feet. Stand back. Okay?
Or what? You're gonna f***ing threaten me and abuse me?
So if you don't exercise your rights, you're going to lose them. If Canadians will not wake up, the history is teaching us that the repetition is going to happen. How do you think Adolf Hitler came to power? How do you think Stalin came to power? Or Mao Zedong, or what we see in North Korea, or in China, or in Islamic nations? Those people came to power because the rest of the society was either scared or silent.
Now, even though the Crown stayed this ruling relatively early, they saw the case and they said, yeah, there's no way we're going to win this when a judge sees it. Even so, it still cost 7 hours worth of legal counsel. That's $2,200 plus some taxes. And that's actually a pretty good deal because we got a bit of a bulk discount fighting these fines across the country. Now, this kind of work, I think, is important. It's some of the most important work that we've ever done at Rebel News, but we couldn't have done it without you. And we're going to continue on with this because the government, the police officers at least, are still issuing fines just like this and still acting unreasonably in the face of this global pandemic. If you want to help us fight these fines, to fight for liberty, fight for freedom of the Canadian people, please go to fightthefines.com. Thanks for tuning into our coverage here at Rebel News. Perhaps my favorite Fight the Fines video was done by Sheila Gunn Reid. I encourage you to check it out at fightthefines.com. It's where she stood up for a Maritimer who was being confronted by a police officer who didn't want him drinking his Tim Hortons in his own car. Totally solitary. It's insane. You got to check it out at fightthefines.com.